This is section 9.3. It's all about multiplying binomials and more, really. But if you can do a binomial, you can do anything, really. So remember, binomials means we have more than one term within a set. So this has two terms, and that's what's called a binomial. So there are two ways you can go about multiplying binomials. The first one is kind of a more traditional method, and that would be breaking this down into two pieces. So what you're going to do is you're going to say, it's going to be 2x times what's over here, so x plus 4, and then it's plus 3 times again what's over here, x plus 4. This is using the distributive property. So then you distribute in. 2x times x would be 2x squared. 2x times 4 would make 8x. We do the same thing over here. 3 times x is 3x, and 3 times 4 is 12. Now once you've done that, you need to combine your like terms. So I've got, these are my like terms, and these are separate from everything. They're constant and squared. So I would have 2x squared, and then 8x plus 3x makes 11x, and then 12 just stays 12. So that's how you use the distributive property. Okay? Here's another example. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to cut this in half and use both pieces. So I've got 6m times everything over here, 2m plus 3. And I've got minus 7 times everything on the right, 2m plus 3. Okay, again we distribute in. 6m times 2m, 6 times 2 is 12, m times m is m squared. 6m times positive 3 makes positive 18m. Negative 7 times 2m makes negative 14m, and negative 7 times 3 makes negative 21. Okay, so again, work from the left, combine like terms. So I've got 12m squared. I've got net positive 18 minus 14 makes positive 4m, and it's still minus 21. And there's our answer. So using distributive property, not too difficult. Let's have you try one on your own. Okay, we still set up the same way. 5z times the stuff on the right, 8z minus 1 plus 2 times 8z minus 1. So minus. Okay, distribute in. 5 times 8, 40. Z times z makes z squared. 5z times negative 1 makes negative 5z. And we'll do the same thing over here. 2 times 8 makes positive 16z. And 2 times negative 1 makes negative 2. Alright, no common terms here, so it's still 40z squared. Negative 5, positive 16, make positive 11z. And then minus 2 stays just like it is. Okay, so that's one way of looking at it. It's using the distributive method. Now, when it comes down to it, you're going to have the choice, typically, between the methods. But in this section, I want you to be able to try and use both before you make that decision later on. So the next method is something you might have heard of, is the FOIL method. So basically what FOIL stands for is first, outside, inside, last. So what that means is F stands for multiply the first terms together. So it would be 3x times 2x. 3 times 2 is 6. X times x makes x squared. Then we do our outside terms. That would be these two terms. So that's 3x times positive 7, which makes positive 21x. And then inside, that would be these two here. So that's negative 5 times 2x, or negative 10x. And then last terms would be these two here. Negative 5 times positive 7 makes negative 35. And then it's just like before. Work on combining your like terms. That makes 6x squared. Positive 21 minus 10 makes positive 11x. And then negative 35 just stays as it is. Now, the order in which you do the FOIL method is not important. You could do first, inside, outside, last. You could do first, last, outside, inside. But what's important is that every term here gets multiplied to every term over here. so that everything gets multiplied by something in the other on the other parentheses. So this gets multiplied here, and then this gets multiplied here. That's kind of how I've always done it. And I'm going to erase so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. My own personal way I do FOIL is I always start with my first term, and I multiply it to both, and then I do my second term, and I multiply it to both. That's just how I've always done it. That helps me keep track of it better than first, outside, inside, last. But what's really important is that you get everything multiplied to everything else. So this time we'll do it using my method and see if you like that better. So we're going to do 3x times 2x, which makes 6x squared. 3x times positive 5 makes 15x. Then we're going to do 4 times 2x, which makes 8x. And then we're going to do 4 times 5, which makes 20. Now again, that's not the same order as first, outside, inside, last, but it ends up in the same spot. If you'd done that in a different order, these would just be reordered, but they'd be the same numbers. So again, 6x squared doesn't change. 15x and 8x makes 23x, and then positive 20 doesn't change. Personally, I think it's easier to keep track if you do it this way, especially when we get to more complicated numbers like trinomials and 4 terms and stuff like that. Let's have you try one. Okay, this time I'll go back to the FOIL method, but really again it doesn't matter. This will just kind of prove that it doesn't matter what order you do it in. So first terms goes like this, 15m squared. Outside terms like that makes 35m. Inside terms makes negative 6m, and last terms makes negative 14. Alright, combining our like terms, I've got 15m squared, positive 35 and negative 6m makes positive 29m, and then negative 14 is what's left. And there's your final answer. Again, I'm never going to be a stickler about what order you do that in. Okay, so let's apply this. So basically the problem here we have is I want to find the area of the blue. Okay, so in order to find area, you know hopefully at this point of a square, it's length times width. So you're going to do this times this to find the area of the blue. And you're going to have to subtract afterwards the area of this one. So this could actually be a multiple step problem here. So the area of blue is going to be equal to 2x plus 5 times 3x plus 1. So I'm going to do it my way, like that. So it's 2x times 3x makes 6x squared. 2x times 1 makes 2x. 5 times 3x makes 15x. And 5 times 1 makes 5. So when I combine my like terms here, I'll have 6x squared plus 2x, oopsie, not plus 2x, combine like terms, plus 17x plus 5. So that's the area of the blue, including this piece right here. Now we have to find the area of the piece that's cut out. That's going to be x times x plus 2. So you just have to distribute this in, making x squared plus 2x. So if I was trying to find the area of just the blue, what I would do is this area minus this area. So let's do that. 6x squared plus 17x plus 5 minus x squared plus 2x. So you can do this any way you want. Somewhat, remember, there's several ways I showed you. One of them is lining them up. So let's try that. So I've got 6x squared plus 17x plus 5. And then I'm going to line up my like terms. I'll put a plus 0 because there's nothing there. And we're going to subtract. So 6x squared minus x squared makes 5x squared. 17 minus 2 makes 15x. And 5 minus 0 makes 5. So there you go. That's how you do a problem like that. You find the two areas, and you find the difference between them. Okay. Last, I want to talk about trinomials. So you'll remember when I talked about my method of FOIL, is that what's really important here is you multiply every term in the left by every term in the right. So the reason I like my method of FOIL rather than the actual true FOIL method is that it allows me to keep track of what's multiplied to what. So the first thing I'm going to do is do 4x squared times 2x. So 4 times 2 makes 8, and then x squared times x makes x to the third. And I'll do the same thing here. 4x squared times negative 3 makes negative 12 x squared. So I've already taken care of that term. I can kind of ignore it now. Next, I'm going to do the positive x times 2x, which makes positive 2x squared. And then positive x times negative 3 makes a negative 3x. And now lastly, I have to use this term right here. I'll change colors so you can see it. Negative 6 times 2x makes negative 12x. And then negative 6 times negative 3, negative times negative, positive 18. So now I have to combine my like terms. So 8x to the third. There's no other x to the third, so that's my only one, 8x to the third. I've got a negative 12x squared and a 2x squared. So negative 12 plus 2 makes negative 10x squared. And then I've got negative 3x and negative 12x making negative 15x. And then positive 18 is the only thing that's left. There we go. So you can see everything on the left got multiplied by everything on the right. That's what's really important. This is just the easiest way to keep track of that. Let's have you try one. That'll be our last problem in this section. Okay. So first things first, let's just go through the 6n and multiply it to everything on that right-hand side. So 6n times 2n squared, 12n to the third. 6n times n makes 6n squared. And 6n times 7 makes positive 42n. Now let's go through and do negative 8 times all this stuff. So negative 8 times 2n squared makes negative 16n squared. Negative 8 times n makes negative 8n. And negative 8 times 7 makes negative 56. Now we got to combine our like terms. 12n to the third, there is only one of those, so that's going to stay just like that. 6n squared, negative 16n squared, makes negative 10n squared. 42 minus 8n, so 42 minus 8, that would be positive 34n, and then last we have our minus 56. And voila, that's all there is to it. Okay, like I said, there's not one right way to do it, but I recommend if they say FOIL, you at least do the true FOIL method or my way. And if they say use distributive property, make sure you actually use the splitting it up into two pieces and distribute and then go from there. After this lesson, you can do it however you want. But today I want you to do it the way they tell you. Okay? Good luck.